Welcome to the Bin Zone. On today's video, we're recapping Tomb Raider: The Legend of Lara Croft Season 1. And with that being said, let's just dive into the recap. But don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more recaps of your favorite shows. The series starts off and Laura's being chased through the jungles of Chile by some goons. She manages to escape from them and finds the secret Temple of the Jaguar. Once inside the Temple of the Jaguar, Roth joins her and they find a green box called the Gift of the Gods. Once they take it and leave, they're ambushed again by the goons who we come to find out are protectors of the temple. Roth ends up killing them all, saving him and Lara. And then we fast forward 3 years in time and Lara is in Peru on Christmas, drowning her sorrows away. And during that time skip is when the events of the Tomb Raider games actually take place. In those games and in this flashback, we learn that Roth is now dead and Lara blames herself. And the best way for her to move forward is through a ritual that she learned in Peru called the Pachima, where she has to burn the belongings of her lost loved ones. Instead of burning all their legacy, she's actually going to donate it to the British Museum, and she holds a gala for this event. It's during this gala that she's approached by a mysterious guy who actually empathizes with the pain that she's going through. And with the pain being too much for Lara to bear, she goes off to grieve. And it's during this period that she noticed that someone is breaking into her house. She goes to confront the thief, and after a crazy action sequence, the thief manages to get away, and Lara ends up going to her father's library and finding out more about the legend of the box that the thief stole. Because the box has sentimental value for Lara, she's going to hunt him down even though Jonah says to let it go. She decides that she's going to follow Roth's footsteps and go at it alone, isolating herself from her friends. That way she never has to feel the pain of loss again. But the thief is one step ahead of her and he's already in China. When he opens the green box, he touches the stone and this gives him a power over other people. He can control the minds of others by touching them. Lara is hot on his heels and she's already in China, and it's during her trip that she learns about the legend of Changji and how he had a red stone that allowed him to conquer China. However, that stone was stolen from him by a holy jinn. A holy jinn is a fox spirit, and this particular fox spirit is called Daji. Lara finds the closest village to the temple, but because of her rude behavior, no one wants to help her. Luckily for her, Jonah came, and Jonah is much nicer to the local village people, and they agreed to guide Lara and Jonah through the jungles if they agree to find the missing children of the village, which Jonah happily obliges to help. They make their way to the middle of the jungle and find a giant sinkhole. Lara dives inside because she loves the action. And once it's safe, Jonah follows her in. They stumble upon a mystical ancient temple. It's in that temple they're looking for the kids and they're attacked by a fox spirit. They manage to evade the fox spirit and find the kids. And come to find out, the fox spirit was not evil at all. The Daiji was actually the good guy. So Lara frees the fox spirit and the spirit guides them out of the temple, returning the kids back to the village. Jonah and Lara end up arguing and she tells him she doesn't need anyone, she's going about the mission alone. After she receives her famous grappling hook from the video games, Jonah, being a good friend, is going to stick beside Lara even if she doesn't want him to. And together they get on a boat and leave, and that's when a giant wave crashes the boat and Jonah is missing. Lara believes he's dead and she ends up being attacked by the same thief that broke into her house. He steals the box. Lara lets him take it because she knows it's empty and she escapes. But because of what she discovered in the temple, she knows that she has to go to Turkey in order to find the stone. But before she goes to Turkey, Zip ends up joining her on her mission. Since Jonah is quote unquote dead, he believes that Lara shouldn't do this alone, and they end up going to the Beijing branch of the secret library of Alexandria, where Lara exchanges a rare artifact from her dad's collection for information about the stones. The Peril stones are stones created by the goddess Hunhua. In Chinese mythology, Hunhua is the goddess that creates humanity and is one half of the balance of yin and yang. And in order to give humans perfect balance, she purged these 4 stones, representing greed, wrath, betrayal, and envy. With that information, Lara goes to Turkey and she finds out that the stone is being held by a warlord. Before she can steal it, she's confronted by the thief who tells her his name is Charles Devereaux and gives his backstory about how the Light, a secret organization stemmed from the Templars, actually killed his father, and he's going to use the power of the stones to stop them before they take over the world. Showing us how his story pretty much mirrors Lara's, except he decided to take a darker path. And that's the path that Lara is going to take if she keeps isolating herself from her friends. Lara says she's nothing like him and storms off, but he has her followed by someone he's mind controlling. Later that night, Lara breaks into the castle of the warlord and ends up stealing the jewel. And that jewel causes her to be violent. This is the Jewel of Wrath. After another crazy action sequence, the warlord tells Lara to keep it away from her. Lara, believing that she's won, makes it back to her hotel room, but because he had her followed, he broke into her room and there's a giant explosion that happens once Lara walks into her hotel room. Her and Kip both end up surviving the explosion, but Charles has both stones and he combines them. And you start to see the weather patterns all around the world changing. Lara, not wanting Zip to get hurt because of her mission, sends him home and she goes to Paris where she meets Camilla. Camilla is Roth's daughter, Lara's childhood best friend, and the two of them grew up together. Lara tried to break into her house and steal the information without meeting her because, again, she wants to be isolated from all her friends, but Camilla catches her and they end up reconnecting and decide to try to solve this mystery together. They end up at the church where Charles Devereux grew up and they find out that the church used to belong to the Knights of the Templar, and that's when they find the location of the next stone, which the Knights of the Templar lost in Iran during the Crusades. And so now Lara has to go to Iran. But it's during this adventure that Lara finds out that Roth actually lied about why Camilla left, and he was actually the one isolating her from her friends, and the two friends reconnect again and realizing after all these years of lost time that it was actually a misunderstanding. Lara then makes her way to one of Jonah's friends, Captain Leo, and he's going to help her sneak into Iran by illegally flying into Iranian airspace and having Lara parasail into the country. And this plan actually works. She sneaks into Iran and lands on a train where Charles has both the stones with him and Jonah's also there. Charles has Jonah attack Lara and throw her out the train, but she's able to come back in, disarm him, and after an intense action sequence, he ends up keeping the stones, but she saves Jonah and breaks his mind control. The first thing Jonah does after they survive is call his fiancée, and Zip is able to do some background check on who Charles is, and he is one of the most skilled mercenaries in the world. And we find out that the location of the next stone is at the Battle of Zulu in China. Not because Charles has multiple stones, we start to see sinkholes appear in London and the world itself is falling apart. So Lara decides she has to find the next stone before Charles, and on the flip side, Camilla is keeping tabs on the Light, aka the Knights of the Templar. Lara and Jonah make their way to the battle site of Zulu and come to find out it's actually a museum tourist spot. And the battle itself never actually happened. When Lara and Jonah get to the location and they find the temple, walking through the temple teleports them to Mongolia, but they're too late. And Charles already got there first. Lara pleads with him not to combine the stones, but he actually does. And now he has untold power and the wildest weather phenomenon start happening all across the world. And with his untold power, he's easily able to defeat Lara and Jonah and throws Lara off a cliff to her death. This is Tomb Raider after all, and Lara survives and makes her way to the top of the cliff. She ends up collapsing, and when she comes to, she finds herself in a small village with Jonah. And once Lara and Jonah regain their strength, they head to the island of Azores, where the Light is hiding out, as well as where Charles is going to be because he's trying to wipe them out. And they run into Camilla, who is already investigating the Light. They get there just in time as Charles is killing the members of the Light, and a giant battle breaks out between everybody versus Charles, who now transformed into a giant creature. But Lara and Camilla working together are able to defeat him and strip him of the stones, ultimately arresting him, saving the world from the natural disasters that were about to destroy it. Jonah and Lara make their way to Kunlun and they find themselves in a mythical cave, and they have to go through a bunch of obstacles, again reminiscent of the games, but they make it through and Lara returns the stones to the goddess Hunwa, who thanks her for her service and takes the stones with her to the realm of the gods, keeping them away from man. But again, this is Tomb Raider and nothing's ever easy, and they're attacked by dinosaurs. They're able to kill a T-Rex in an awesome battle sequence, and Lara has now finally become the Tomb Raider from the original classic games. They make their way back to London in time for Jonah to have his wedding, and she realizes it's better to be with friends and family than to be alone, and she's finally happy since the death of Roth. During the wedding ceremony, Sam never showed up. Sam calls Lara while she's at the wedding, but the phone mysteriously hangs up. So Lara rushes to Sam's apartment only to find signs of struggle and Sam nowhere to be found. And you can see Sam was closing in on a mysterious organization. And the season ends with Lara angry that someone actually took her friends and now she's gonna hunt them down. And guys, that's the recap for Tomb Raider Season 1. I hope you liked the recap. And if you did, definitely give the video a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. And until next time, peace.